Okay, yeah, I want to try and get to Sim before I kind of run out of gas. I'm running on a generator right now. And I just want to include some information about a military barrel deterrent. Um, some music videos you'll see like on YouTube. Um, yeah, and it seemed to be, almost linked to the colors between the Israeli bird, the practical application principle of the two-tone thing that you probably can probably think of as a practical application of principle, like you probably seen on mostly probably trucks, probably more so than any other vehicle, the two-tone thing that was back in the late 70s. And yeah, and getting to the Israeli bird, about the one bird whoopa, this blue and purple, and the American Express card is showing the green and blue wing. But anyway, yeah, I just want to include something about the podium real quick, about um, it being like an iPod, and the thing about it being like 35, like Austin Powers, like memory minus the facto, the I itself, pronounced I, the actual letter, the ninth letter, I, in the word podium, as compared to iPod, and the UN being like 34, and it seemed to be the thing about AOL and Orion, and Brian Adams' name seemed to have the significance of some music videos. It was actually places I was taken to during the Stargate program. Brian Adams' name seemed to be the interchangeable of the initials, giving it a different perspective, like the AOL being like Apple and Oracle, America Online, of course, and like the Orion and the Orion, and the difference between AM and PM, seemingly of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. of like a 247 degree of like the United States Supreme Court Southwest Court Report of like Highway 59 seemed to be the thing about the Alpha America's 140 and Pearland, and on the southwest side of town, including Southwest Airlines. But it seemed to be Brian Adams' name with the B placed on the Adams side, and the A of Adams placed on the Brian, the A Ryan, and the pronunciation of Aryan. And it seemed to be that during a circuit, involving like the mind's eye of a military barrel deterrent, it's like the music video of like Dream Theater, in my mind, and the one that George Bush is in, of 9/11, involving 9/11 and certain factors of George Bush in that particular video, and Randall Garcia, the producer of that particular video. But it seemed to be the jet. Okay, here's the thing: is that it's showing a huge jet, but it's like a cargo jet, and it's like identical, yet it presents like almost the same colors of American Express, the green and blue. It's a different shade. It's like the green jet, the cargo jet, yet with the Soviet Union presidential jet, it's like a midnight blue, which was a factor between, and it's probably, I'm assuming, somehow connected to Vladimir and Trump having the same alphanumeric value between Air Force One. It seemed to be the only thing about 1995 when the Air Force One was identified like as a midnight blue, but I think it had a little bit of gold, and likewise midnight blue, and it's like the 404 thing about the midnight blue, as compared to like the thing is it's like one flew over the cuckoo's nest, but it's really not the cuckoo's nest, but kind of like I was there. Okay. It's like a huge twin propelled horizontally, what would give the similarities of appearance of like a Chinook, but not. It's like it's like about 70 yards, maybe even 100 yards long. It's like, phenomenally huge, and it was flying over when I was in Austin at a particular location. And like I'd mentioned, that the rotors were turning, so phenomenally, it looked like so slow. It didn't compute in my mind in any kind of normal way of it having the lift, to actually lift that kind of weight. With only 3 propellers on each. I'm assuming there was 3. I've seen others that were like phenomenally huge with only 3 at that type of, but I'm not really sure. But in any case, the blades were spinning, so slow it didn't compute in my mind anything normal about something so huge having that kind of lift, and looking like it wouldn't even have enough RPM and revolution to even, lift it that way. But anyway, yeah, so like, anyways, that's like one of the midnight blue things about, the twin propelled copter, and maybe that be the similarity of principle, like between the thing about the green and blue, it's almost like Sammy Hagar song, returning home. Green and blue, the color of the sea. I mentioned it a couple times, and now it's kind of like I was thinking about the jet in the music video involving like 9/11 of the World Trade Center of Dream Theater's video with Randall Garcia, the producer, but it's like got George Bush in it, and he does something similar to what his father was kind of like moving his lips, but it's kind of like the like it was as read my lips thing, and his father was like moving stuff, but you couldn't hear it. But George Bush was kind of like presented almost in the same manner like his father did, but a whole complete different deal, and more so in color. I think it was like static with his father's thing about what would give the impression of read my lips, because they zoomed in on his lips. Okay, is the thing about it. Okay, but in any case, like he was in that video, and he made several statements that automatically in my mind, kind of caught my attention, because I'd referred to some information in that direction of like Washington D.C. But anyway, yeah. So like Sammy Hagar sings that song "Returning Home." It's kind of like the green and blue has been, now it's kind of like the jet of a military barrel deterrent, and like an airport. I'm thinking that it's a central time zone of like Boeing. I'm not sure if Boeing has a military side of like a designated thing about them being like at that particular airport, but I'm assuming it's the thing that would really be that one song "Returning Home," because it's kind of like the green and blue, but it's like almost like the kind of army green, but the presidential jet of like Vladimir. I'm assuming Vladimir Putin, but it's identified as a Soviet presidential jet. I mean, it's like virtually identical, except it's like in the midnight blue, yet still blue. But the thing with this is that, like Vladimir being, like 88 and Trump being 88, 1995 was the only year that I'd found out and backtracked that was identifying the Air Force One of the United States as like it was being presented like binary numbers in computer language programming and language, computer programming and language that way of binary numbers, and like region 1 and region 0 as an acronym of the FBI presenting itself like a foreign bureau interrogation or foreign bureau intelligence as compared to Federal Bureau of Investigation. It's like the acronym, you see it all the time, and it seems to be the degree thing that separates being involved with a circuit, like it's the option that being referred to in that way, that would make the U.S. dollar maybe the idea that it's not involved, yet English, yet the FBI, and like everyone knows where the acronyms at when it's at that way. But it seemed to be the 1995 thing about the Air Force One, the President of the United States, and now it's kind of like the movie. The music video of Dream Theater involving like the World Trade Center and 9/11, and that one jet it's like a cargo jet, and they look the same, except it's like almost like the song of Sammy Hagar singing "Green and Blue, the color of the sea." Yet it's kind of like the same color between like the alphanumerics of like Trump being 88 and Vladimir being 88, and the Soviet presidential jet is like the jet, but it's not the cargo. The design is virtually identical, but it's just one's a cargo and one's not. The green was like the cargo, and the blue one's like the presidential of the Soviet Union. And the thing about the Air Force One is 1995, I think, it's the only year, and that's like the year of the World Trade Center. And a lot was like going on when I was going through a circuit involving quite a bit. There seemed to be somehow information linked to like a data foundry using RAID, and I'm not really sure about everything about the acronym involved, but it presented information like on television programming as like RAID of it in TV. Not that I'm referring to anything other than television programming, but it's found in as an acronym. Not that it has to be or is not. Like air raids involving thing about maybe the thought of maybe going through the circuit, or what that really is, and all that. But the thing with this is that that was taking place. It seemed to be like now it seemed to be like I'd refer to the Jets song "Make It Real," and tonight it's been a year we met each other here, and it goes on and on through it, and Yeah, and it goes on about yeah, but it seemed to be that particular phrase that seemed to be involving the calendar year, a fiscal annual as a point of origin normally identified as business. Um, I'm not sure if corporate structure and beginnings, if that's anything other. Corporation is supposed to be an eternal structure based upon really spiritual principles that are taught of the 12 tribes of Israel that are like in the King James Version Bible, and the mentioning of that as the alphanumeric value of corporation being 144, and the big 3 zeros that would represent automatically the thousand thing about Zion, and between the 12 tribes of Israel, like Zion and like the Mormon Church, it presents the 3 zeros. It's automatically placement, what that would normally mean anyway. But like the 12 tribes of Israel being 144,000 that way. But anyway, it seemed to be that one jet, and it's a cargo jet. And it seemed to be thinking about military procurement, and from a distance, it's like the Bette Midler song, like my mind's eye, okay? And it's like the thing about memory minus the fact is like 35, okay? And from like 1992, and it seemed to be of the baptism, and it seemed to be that the Social Security Administration network operations in Wilkes, Pennsylvania, it's like something about that in addition to their phone number, knowing something, having read the Secrets of the Temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country, and ultimately the thing about that I'm getting to is that the phone number being 1-800-772-1213 is ultimately getting to a column of like chronological of like a chart from A to Z and 1 to 26 repeatedly, and under 12 being the letter L being 12, and the M being like 13, and being automatically down all the way down. It gets to like 1964, 1965, 83, and 84, and the wooden buffalo nickels, what it seemed to be really getting to. 3D International, that was on the West Loop 610 side on Westheimer at the corner, and like Chase and Capitol, like right there side by side, right by the Galleria on the same street. But the thing is that it presents like the fake news that Trump is referring to. In my mind, it's about that wooden buffalo nickel, and it being like the alphanumeric, like 76 with 1D, 80 with 2Ds, and 84 with 3Ds, and 3D International right there on that corner seem to be thinking about what coffee is, as a wooden buffalo nickel is about the coffee. Yet McDonald's Golden Arch is likewise the hot cafe cup at McDonald's. It presents the alphanumerics and a symbolic representation on the backside with the alphanumeric value that has all the connectivity. I mean, and now it seems to be like the Sammy Hagar songs, kind of like all these songs that normally that I practice my drums on. Like, I mean, when I decide to really get a daily standard, like practice, just get what was then some of the cassettes is it turned into the compact disc, and I mean, straight home from school, I mean, on my drum set, like till it was time to go to sleep normally, other than when baseball was like normally the factor, likewise in addition, through high school. But anyway, yeah, so like in any case, so like I want to stay concentrate like on the direction here, but it seemed to be the thing about Brian Adams' name being like the interchangeability of that, what AOL would present like the America Online as the idea of the L being the line, okay, and it like even line 6, V series guitar amp, Ibanez S series, and the thing about Fort Stockton and like Ector County, and the Vantage Love 30 being the idea of secret de facto 30, and the SCH in the guitar, it seemed to be like Guitar Airlines and like Ector County combined with Emirates and Boeing in that area about the James Bond unit, not limited to. And so like the technology, but I don't want to go all the way in that direction like at all right now. But what I'm really getting at is like Brian Adams' name, is because it's like that video. Do I have to say the words? And it seemed to be the thing about that particular video that's kind of giving the impression of being involved, actually part of the military railroad determinant, and actually like in that car, the same car that's in the video. Okay, the thing with this is that likewise in addition, Brian Adams with the I Thought I Died and Gone to Heaven, it seemed to be like another Sammy Hagar song about the black and blue thing, and Chris Tomlin's Holy Forever seemed to be something like that about the mind's eye. That was used like something about that, yeah. and like a considerable amount involving like television at different locations, um, and certain factors like so I mean it really seems like really the way it is. Um, knowing that, even finding it or even remembering really quite a bit about it, it's really only because of after the fact, like 1995, the World Trade Center really was, I think about thinking that there was like several locations of like points of view of buildings and structure in the skyline. I mean, the same thing. It's like showing it's like New York, but it seemed to be possibly the secrets of the temple, how the Federal Reserve runs the country. Identifying like European German owned mining raw diamonds in South Africa. Ultimately, in my mind, automatically, the Johannesburg thing equaling 130 in like Washington. And it seemed to be the thing about really Johannesburg being 130 in Washington. And it's like all the information is really suggesting, the Sahara Desert in the Persian Gulf, okay? But I mean, it's like the pi r squared, the E equal MC squared, and a asymmetrical deal about all that information in the secrets of the temple about mining raw diamonds in South Africa. And it flips geographically with all the thing about linguistic and alphanumeric, symbolic and analytical. And it's like Washington, D.C. and the Houston area, and alphanumerically, it's right to the Persian Gulf, of Paris being 73, like Egypt, and presents all that alphanumeric value in the Persian Gulf. Likewise, in addition, even Nostradamus, narrated by Orson Welles, and, Sarah, about being in the desert, and, seemed to be, think about the baptism, once again, the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, because I've seen it taught, that, likewise, Joseph being the husband of like Sarah, and I've actually seen it as Abraham, likewise, in addition. Kind of like the 12 photo reserve banks, I've seen it both. In the beginning, it's like 1914. Yet the Jehovah's Witness ceases at the beginning of the last days, is like in 1914. And I saw other information, and that's all I saw about the 12 photo reserve bank for, a long time. Even going through, the circuit, when I really started writing, like the Treasury, like, send me like, every, like, picture of like every, U.S. dollar, and I started studying, like the U.S. dollar, the 1, the 2, the 5, 10, 20, the 100, the 500, the 1,000, the 10,000 Chase T note, all that. I was like studying everything that was like on it, forwards, backwards. But anyway, it's like doing all that, about just like knowing what buildings, structures, and presidents, and terms in office. I mean, and not really favorable conditions. But yeah, nevertheless, that's what I was doing as often as possible. But anyway, yeah. So like, the thing with it is that it's like Abraham Lincoln, like the only person studying in the dark. I mean, for real. Yeah. So like, that's what I was really focusing my attention on, because of the after the baptism that I had on June 4th, it's Flag Day, Saturday morning, okay, the Mormon Church, okay, and it seemed to be now, like the Six Flags saying, ultimately, like using like the Social Security Administration based upon it actually leading to supplemental security income and Medicaid and benefits, even the EBT, and all this information seemed to be involving, remember the Alamo. And the deal about, Mexico not being Region 1, but the Alamo thing is about, Santa Ana, and the thing like in San Antonio. And all this information is kind of like it goes through all the stuff about Mercedes-Benz, like introducing a smart car, smart for two. And Chuck really saying that 2 and 2 is like this asymmetrical thing at the same time. I guess to like the Cyanide and the Saturn sky about, identical to a rainbow. And hopefully, the Lexus LFSA, and SA being, several factors, and LF being, certain factors, likewise in addition. It's kind of like San Antonio. It's like South America, but, all the information that's being presented is really being presented in that book, Secrets of the Temple. Even certain information, knowing religiously how the Jehovah's Witness actually teaches at the beginning of the last days, is like, 1914, but I'd seen that. It was like other information involving Sacramento, the 12 Federal Reserve Bank's grand opening was like 1913 and 1914, but it was like presented as 1914, from the very beginning, and that's really all I knew till I got to a certain point. And I was like, really, after the baptism, really, June 14th, 1990, on Flag Day, SAT, highest possible score of like an entrance exam of like major universities. 2400. Yeah, it seemed to be the Stargate program is the VSAT, and the symbolic symbols like that can be found like the Boolean chart, sequencing characterization in sets of 6 and audio production. It seemed to be the thing about the Stargate program being the VSAT, and 2400 of the highest possible score of like major universities. In my mind, it seemed to be involving that symbolic of a drum major, and it's kind of like the two words in King James Version Bible is like come privilege, and the universities that are normally identified in the King James Version Bible, the major universities, normally with those two words come privilege, not that they identified it in any kind of way as a pagan idolatry or forecast of orthopedic surgery involving the humerus bone or some attempt to have some like premeditated like, hey, it's good seeing it, and capitalize on the memory. So like anyway, so like I said to be something about even the deal about the black bird and 10 Commandments with like Yul Brynner being Pharaoh and like Moses and Charlton Heston, and the pagan idolatry. It almost seemed to be something about even what I had experienced as being gas and all that like going on air raids while I was asleep, and realized it was so kind of like not funny that there was like a period of like kind of conscious, kind of beyond really incoherent, but there's like a duration. It's kind of like hard to account for. Like anything, and a time period passed, and I realized that after maybe it may have been maybe more than maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe in any case. So like I realized that I was having to lean from side to side, and I didn't even know that it had been operated on, but it seemed to be that 4 inches of my humerus bone had been removed on each side of my arm. I don't know if that's considered some idea of a forecast as a pagan idolatry of like United States Code's constitutional law, or the codes annotated as state statutes involving the black bird, or some pagan idolatry of like Egypt and Harris being 73 or some 6-point star, the Israeli Star of David, and some idea of information between Al Qaeda and like the Persian Gulf and Latin America, or some idea of the way the U.S. dollar is defined and identified as the history of the U.S. dollar below the equator in Latin America as involving the mammon. Yet Barack Obama, is referring to Al Qaeda in the Persian Gulf. It seemed to be the practical application of the same, of that book of the U.S. dollar being the Persian Gulf, and that Pulse Club in Florida, Orlando, okay? And all that information, okay? It's like, and the jurisprudence book, and it seemed to be the thing about, Tony Orlando and Don, yet Orlando, and it presents, that information that way, with cricket being the green thing, same color of the pastel, of like on par on the golf course, okay? And it presented, it was like being sold with the pulse phone and Pearland, okay? And it seemed to be the thing about really even, kind of like that song, by Alana Miles, the Black Velvet, I'd refer to it. It's kind of like the book jurisprudence, and yet Sprite, and, you've heard it before. I like Sprite in it. It's kind of like, are you sure you know what you're talking about? And it's kind of like cricket, being identified as sold in the Pulse Club. The Pulse phone, yet the Pulse Club in Orlando, and Tony Orlando and Don, that tie yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, seemed to be, the AM and PM of 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. and some 247 degree that has ultimately got, beyond the thought of a telepathic judge or, United States Secretary Robert E. Rubin identifying more of the current events of like endorsements of, a method of banking, as compared to only, what might be considered, separation between church and state of, being attached to some idea of the U.S. dollar as an endorsement, or some like, forfeiture based upon lack of experience, neglect based upon lack of experience, or some idea of like absentee voting as pending whether or not if it's a vice president network as a potential forfeiture, or a defector seeking amnesty, or some idea like absentee voting as some parent, and Ninvas, and representing some idea the peacock as well as like colors of a rainbow, or the talking bird thing about absentee voting of a parrot being Perot, or some idea of like Ross Perot. Ross Perot, yeah. Absentee voting of a parrot, yeah. My name is 33 and like wait, okay. It's like bird name and MGM and almost zodiac in a way. My birth of my month of my birth year in August is it's like 33, my first name. Okay, bird is it's like all this stuff. Okay, but it's kind of like a little bit really kind of not funny about the thing about a holy seagull and the thing about the color code of the space shuttle, and the thing about a holy seagull, and the thing about NASA being in Clear Lake, Texas, and alphanumeric's 137 that way, involving Washington D.C. being 137, and Clear Lake, Texas, likewise, of the space shuttle being that idea seemed to be the black and white ratio is probably actually the same ratio of the silver silk screen, the monochrome of like black and white television. I'm thinking it's probably exactly the same ratio that maybe a holy seagull would normally have as a bird, between the black and white thing about it. Yeah, and NASA is kind of like the space shuttle having that color, and Clear Lake, Texas being 137. Holy seagull spelled with 2 L's is like 137. Okay, it's like a bird. Okay, just like a parrot is, and think about the absentee voting of a parrot being the idea of like parole. You've heard Ross Perot before. The thing is that N with one cycle above what looks like one cycle of frequency above the letter N in Latin, languages, it pronounces the pronunciation like you hear all the time in the name Pena, but yet, symbolically like one frequency. That's identified, as maybe, thought of maybe a similar line of oscillation. Yet it seemed to be identifying the factors between Latin America and the Persian Gulf for that information, ultimately getting to the Pulse Club in like Orlando. And think about a parrot being with absentee, it's like a Perot or with the T, and that one N placed in with it, identifying neighborhoods. And the thing about a parrot becoming parent with an N, and why the N's even put in it is really obviously got into the colors about a talking bird. Talking bird. Yeah. Okay, and the thing about normally it suggests it's like South America, the SA is the bird, but it's kind of like the T and the N seem to be the thing about the value of like 34 and like the US $1 that way. Brian Adams. Okay, I'm trying to stay on the Brian Adams thing right now, because like with Brian Adams, it's like the initials of Paul Walker in the book Secrets of the Temple, and just Paul Walker's initials being like the PA, I mean the PD like the cabinet speaker, or the VP like the vice president, and the N likewise with parent like the forefathers of the nations, with the N with the thing about the parent being a parent, yet the forefathers of the nation, giving the thought of that in that way. Yet I'm referring to what seemed to be the thought of maybe forecast is like a pagan idolatry involving the humerus bone, involving Egypt as the black bird, and I'm not sure if it's just considered a black crow, or the thing about escrow. And the thing about it is that actually really happened while I was asleep, and I was gassing like airwaves were taking place, and taking and close to 35 years later, after the fact of predominantly 1995 is like the core of the World Trade Center, and like a 6-year period between 1995 and 2001, it's kind of like presented as the thing about the alphanumeric 6. Yet at the same time, it's kind of like the $6 million man. All this stuff is happening to me while I'm asleep and been operated on, and it's kind of like it's kind of like almost like an electronic surge, causing me to like urinate on myself, and it's kind of like remote control lap bands around my intestines, bloating up. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And around like main arteries, it's kind of like I noticed that for a long time. I'm wondering really how long, really. But it was really when I was presenting the Lexus LFSA with a picture that I actually had duplicated and like made like a poster picture on an 8.5 by 11, and I presented it because I'm like doing alphanumerics about it, and the color code it seemed to be, Univision in a way, the black and white, yet the drumhead of, like Rainbow Black Dot, yet, an Aquarium Power White Dot, yet the Univision having the 3 pastels in the black and the 3 pastels in white, and it's, all the, on the way to the drum shop, okay, the drum shop actually being there, like on Chimney Rock, okay, and all that information going on, and, Univision being right there at the West Loop 610 at Highway 59, and at, Highway 59 being Alphamex 140 in Pearland, Texas, after going through it, I mean, really after baptism, okay, the not many days hence, ye must be first baptized of the water, and not many days hence, ye shall be baptized with the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. I've seen it both ways, okay. In any case, it seemed to be, ultimately over that seemed to be the Six Flags baptism, and it seemed to be the Social Security Administration in Wilkes Bar, Pennsylvania. Is the thing about the bar, about being about the baptism and the HTTP:// yeah, and I'll talk about the Wilkes, but the Wilkes Bar, I mean, it presents the deal about like student loan combined with Pell Grant, with the two together. It's almost like Sarbanes and Oxley, and the thing about, financial instruments and SOX compliance. I mean, it sets up too in a lot of ways, but like right now, kind of like I'm thinking about Bryan Adams' song and Thought I Died and Gone to Heaven, and like Chris Tomlin's video, Holy Forever. I mean, it's like the mind's eye going through, I mean, like a military bill of determinant, and other factors, and even that video. And I was thinking about it, I was watching that video with like Bryan Adams. Do I have to say the words? And I was thinking about something. I'm actually trying to remember, but it seemed to be the thing about, like George Bush in that video and that jet, given the same appearance, yet it's a cargo in the video involving like Dream Theater, and it's a cargo jet, yet it's the same design of the Soviet Union presidential jet, and I'm thinking there's a room in it. It's like and I'm, I don't want to say that it's, I'd asked the question. I was actually trying to find out if that particular jet had like an emergency like operating room in it. And certain phrases of those songs, because I'd remember something about, the black and blue thing about being like there, of a Bryan Adams video, and, thing about, the mind's eye, and everyone knows what that means. Yeah, so like there's like in between, air raids and, all that other stuff, and not even sure, if, I don't even like referring to it, and really kind of anyway, or something about, the thought of, the Bureau of Vital Statistics, and, well, you know what that means. In any case, so like, the thing with this is that it seemed that one car in that video, do I have to say the words? I'm actually placing something somewhere in my mind about the mind's eye thing about that, yeah. But anyway, so it's like Bryan Adams is like something like, yeah, you're yeah, ever since 1969 for real, huh? And it seemed to be, really something about that. My birthday would be in 1964, okay? But, it's kind of like I was thinking that for quite some time about Bryan Adams, like really anyway. I went to one of his concerts in the Summit. It's like phenomenally, like, really probably one of the better ones, like really out of all the rock concerts that I'd been to in the Summit, okay? But anyway, yeah. In any case, so, yeah, so like, I was thinking about that because it seemed that the initials, like when I realized that Paul Walker's initials in the book Secret Temple, How the Federal Reserve Runs the Country, the New York Federal Reserve Bank president during the Ronald Reagan administration, the ray gun, thing about the laser, or some idea of like, methods of, surgical operation, not limited to, but it seemed to be, like the lasers you're seeing on me now, it's not necessarily the types of the laser that I'm referring to. They're really not the same that's actually used in orthopedic surgery, or, dermatology. In any case, so like, or the thing, about like LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery. And the thing with this is that all that got to, to a point that the connectivity was kind of like, realizing a little bit about, a bunch of connectivity in between LASIK, laser corrective eye surgery and that location on the west side of Houston, actually having the word plaza on a rectangle, being alphanumerics 56 in drum, and ultimately papermate 5610 and 94 and Roe v. Wade, and all kinds of stuff about annotated adoption and abortion, and all this stuff. The thing with it is that all the way to Geneva, Switzerland, the being venue, and it seemed to be the only thing about being taken there, that being the G, it seemed to be almost like, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, or the Spirit. The Father, Son, and Holy Ghost was like a baptism that represented, it seemed to be that one 1992 presidential inaugural ball hosted by Chevy Chase, of William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore. And, Al Gore is, I automatically, think of algorithm when, his name is automatically in my mind. I'm a drummer involved, electronics. And the thing with it is that, when William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore, it's kind of like, that was like really one of my first thoughts is algorithm, involving, electronics, or the rhythm, even, the thing about the band Yes and the Rhythm of Love, and it's almost getting to the Vantage Love 30, Secret de Facto thing about, the Vantage Love 30, and 30 being like 100, and the 100 Club, and a whole bunch of cold blues stuff, and it seemed to be really the black and blue jurisprudence, and even Cricket Wireless, even, the thing about Elton John, the Cricket thing, even his song, yeah, he's like his Soul Train, and Benny and the Jets, and Internet Protocol, like referring, it's like he's tipping his hat, and he's like doing his colors, kind of like television programming during that time, during like a transition between Technicolor. Really, it's presented kind of like that, with the impression that Soul Train is some idea of some transition between pastel and Technicolor and into the color thing, and it's like back and forth on the entire television set with every channel. I think, I don't know how old that song is. I really am not sure, but it's like on Soul Train, it's like in green, okay, and he's leaning from side to side, like really, like I'm having to do, and I'm really seeing it and hearing it in a way that really I didn't before. It's only really because of what happened that I'm seeing it and hearing it really exactly. It seemed to be the Internet Protocol and the call and the callie and like Lassie and the humor about, Lassie Onassis, okay. The thing about John F. Kennedy and the Kennedy, and the thing about really a colonel and the kin, and the canine unit, the kennel, the kin, the kennel, and, the Lincoln pronounced backwards is like the kennel. Abraham Lincoln Night Vision Shuttle Government Stargate Program, and Lincoln's the only one studied in the dark, okay? It's really what I think about, all that AM, PM stuff, and a 9 degree of the equator, likewise, in addition, the idea of a point of origin, or even the thought of like a haloed latitude. There seemed to be even the smart meters at this location, in my mind, it's kind of like something about, like a transponder as a latitude of like a halo in orbit. And all this stuff is going on. It's kind of like, you got to be kidding me. Is that really what's going on? Is it that there's a transponder identified through center point energy as a halo? It's like all that like eternal churches know about it. Okay, it's a phenomenally huge secret, right? It's kind of like you got to be seriously not funny about some of the things that, being on SSI and me thinking about the supplemental security income and the SSI and the misappropriation allocation to Mississippi, being the ISS and the SSI, and whenever I feel like talking to PPI and the PPO and the HMO and the Eurodollar, I can say, well, but right now it's kind of like my drum set, having the ISS mounting system for my Prohibition VSX, getting the Strata Blue now, but what you see me on my channel, Wade ASV Pretty, PRDDY at YouTube.com, it's Prohibition, okay, a VSX in the Strata Red with the black hardware, with 3 rotos and 4 octobones, okay, and I think it's like 9 zillion 8 custom symbols, okay. In any case, yeah, so like it's a total of 35 pieces, okay, including hardware, stands, everything, okay. And it seemed to almost have the significance of a double bass drummer, being, 2 basses with normally 2 mounted toms on each, being a total of 6. Automatically now it's kind of like, 6 is 52, and a VPN, the Vice President Network, is a double bass drummer. Even before I even got on YouTube, which was actually beginning really seriously with my lighting, in 2020, and all this stuff. Really after baptism, I really kind of was like looking for answers, and I wasn't finding them. The way I was anticipating, I mean, really, as close as it got between, religion as the King James Version Bible, about, a heart God, the Alpha 78, or escrow, what that is in as the holy temple, and really an experience that would really include some idea of a name, Robert. Okay, the thing with it is that that alphanumerics, it got to the point that it went from one thing to the other in between, like a VPN being 52, as compared to the heart and pearl, my drum, and ultimately even the thing about the misappropriation allocation of the Mississippi, and the 90 degree of the practical application of McDonald's golden arches being side by side in one frequency above and below this, obviously identifying Latin America and monetary and domestic of neighborhoods of Delta forces that Barack Obama is really not saying everything about, but really that's what the Pulse Club in my mind was really all about. When the Pulse Club and all those people were like shot and killed at that location, I think it was like involving a Delta force of like communications. Barack Obama referred to that Al Qaeda owned their entire own telecommunications system, and it was like a huge problem. And it's almost like really kind of like I'm seeing information, I'm hearing it. It's like, is it only my television? Barack Obama referring to like Al Qaeda, and to me it's like the word allocation being Al Qaeda. Yet I mean it's ultimately getting to the occasion, and the pronunciation of occasion originating from allocation. It gets to the ocean, and it's almost like the principle of a vice president network, the front lines of the beachfront, including just saying he knew you before the foundations of the earth. It's ultimately something about Zion in my mind, and like the Mormon Church having fair use of the King James Version Bible, and people being maybe blind and naive to their own religion, and thinking that they're just like automatically have a birth certificate because they're like born on North American like land, and don't realize that land is like a local area network, and like network administrators and Wi-Fi managers, and oh my god, yeah, webmasters are like involved. It's kind of like potentially like non-negotiable, non-transferable itemization might actually reflect maybe what it means to be maybe knowing someone that had been to the pawn shop before, of commercial venue, living quarters of like not considered a neighborhood. Not that it's an economic plea bargain, Ponzi scheming, raffling, voucher, auctioneering, clearance, and warehousing. I mean, something not to forget about that 240% in the pawn shop, and it's a standard, the European standard. Yet it's so English, and the symbolic representation on the backside of the U.S. $1 bill as an electrical symbolic symbol. Yeah, it is, and the Eurodollar really identifies a certain factor of symbolic information, referring to the Boolean chart, and it seemed to be the G, the B in venue, being the G and the W, and it's like the PG 13, the PG rating as like 23, and it's Sigma Alpha Delta Kappa Phi being at 23 in Dr. Pepper, and it seemed to be the only thing about whether deed restriction is only DR being the idea of Dr. Pepper being deed restriction. It's like the black back of jurisprudence, or when you like to be a pepper too. I mean, do you really know what you're talking about? Because it seemed to be really the 23. It's the only one that I know of like on this planet that Dr. Pepper's the one that only celebrated. I mean, it's like, it's not that it's just landmarked as like an iconic year is what it is. It's not that it's 23 years. It's just that it's like the 50th anniversary of like relation of like people who are married. Okay, it's like it's like phenomenally like one of the best things. Like it's been so like good knowing you. It's kind of like it's almost like a continuation of like distribution of like import and exporting. It's like wow, really got it going on in that kind of way. It's like a joint venture and merger almost. And I'm not sure if Sarbanes-Oxley is representing some idea, if that's some idea between corporate and business law as a joint venture and merger as compared to transportation of a VIN number. I'm not really sure. I'm really going to have to think about it, really. But in any case, so like it seemed to be like all that information. And I'm thinking about Brian Adams because the MindsEye thing, and I've been really thinking about Ivanka Trump at like a podium, and it seemed to be a thing about that music video of like Dream Theater, Sacrifice Sons, with George Bush in it, and the producer being Randall Garcia, um, and that jet, the cargo jet, and it's kind of like I'm thinking Chicago, um, something about Boeing and something about that movie. I think it's Tommy Lee Jones, and like Black Moon Rising. There's like a dual magnification. I think it's Tommy Lee Jones. I think they're at an airport, and the effect of the dual magnification is like, I think it's Tommy Lee Jones, but it's someone in that movie anyway, like running in front of an 18-wheeler, and I think it's on a huge wide open area of an airport. And it's like the dual magnification. It's like time, not really lapsing, but it's like a chronological of like zooming. It's like getting huger. It's like moving faster than really it's because of the effect of the dual zoom. It's like it's getting bigger and moving faster, and wouldn't normally compute as really being that, but with that zoom, it's almost like some people are identify, and like some people may know what I'm talking about. That like even I felt that perception, like a room getting phenomenally huger. It's kind of like I was at a location at a podium, as a matter of fact, and I wasn't really prepared. I just wanted to get up and talk. Okay, I didn't really even plan not one thing about it, and I got to a point that I knew I wanted to talk more. I mean, I felt like I just got started, and I got to a point that I wasn't sure like what I was going to say next, and that just that few seconds of pausing, the awareness of the room. I mean, it's like hardly anyone there anyway, but it's almost like the size of the room. It's kind of like a perception. It's like getting bigger. It's kind of like that perception, like almost panic, And I'm sure people that spoke like that before and not prepared, or prepare a presentation. I mean, not really prepared really to talk really at all, but did it anyway and may know what I'm talking about. But anyway, it seemed to be that zoom lens effect like that, okay? In any case, yeah, so like anyway, it's like something like Ivanka at the podium, and like one of the jets is like phenomenally, like way huger, I mean, than normal. In my mind, I mean, it's like when I saw that picture, it's kind of like, it's kind of like, it reminded me of something about what seemed to be like that dual zoom, and the jet was like, I mean, it wasn't a zoom, it's like actually being, it's like phenomenally like huger than normal. I mean, like way phenomenally huger, didn't seem normal at all, really. In any case, so like there's something about her at the front of that particular, I'm assuming Boeing. There's something about that one particular cargo jet, and like a Sammy Hagar song, and like an American Express, identifying like even a Wilson Phillips song, "Hey, Falling Like a Wing." The Over and Over song seemed to be, the Over and Over, the two different two-tone wings of like the Israeli whoopah bird, the blue and purple bird, the one bird having blue and purple, and it is the bird of Israel, including Star of David. Yet, the thing about the American Express card, it presents, the green and blue, yet it's almost like a Sammy Hagar song in my mind of returning home. Green and blue, the color of the sea. Yet it seemed to be like AOL and Apple and Oracle and Apple iPhone SE. And it presents, pronunciation as vision. And my thing about LASIK laser corrective eye surgery and a coupon of it, showing with the white hair and blue eyes, and like like an identical female, with like green eyes. I mean, almost virtual perfection, and except once with blue and once with green eyes, and she's in a wheelbarrow for a few seconds. And it seemed to be the thing about, the little bit of humor. I have my power. I have cauliflower. I think it's Lassie and Onessa, who knows? It's all right. It's all right. It's all inside of my heart. A little bit of humor about the time when that song came out, about, Dancing Days. Robert Plant, the thing, the name, but it seemed to be, something ultimately even getting to the idea of the Hindenburg or Bloomberg, the bird thing, and a little bit of humor. It seemed to be the thing about the rhyme, the rhythm and the rhyme. Yeah, so I mean, it seemed to be, likewise, that's normally like the word rhythm, and the MSN, with the alphabet reverse, it's like rhyme, rhythm, and that one particular word, rhythm, and it seemed to be, the TH being 28, and like air is like transparent, and like rhythm becomes like the M is in, and it's already M, um, and it becomes in. It's like, well, actually rhyme, but the thing with this is that it's already the M, but it's like with rhythm, it's like it becomes like rhyme, because with the TH being like 28 in air, it's like you can see through, it's transparent that the RNH it presents, and I'll think about it later, but it seemed to be, think about Al Gore and the algorithm that way. And, William Jefferson Clinton also, uses the name, Bill Clinton. William Jefferson Clinton, like 264, and Bill Clinton being like 122, like automatically sanitation in my mind, and not limited to, when I thought of saying software, and even a storage area network and securities and annuities network. Sanitation is like, one of the things about what I think about in that way, where that's at, the thing with this is that, it seemed to be, William Jefferson Clinton and Al Gore hosted at the 1992 presidential inaugural ball, and it seemed to be that him being the host it's like almost in my mind like the G at the B in venue, Geneva, Switzerland, of human civil rights, and it's like something going through a circuit. It's almost like the Corvette is identifying factors of the Colonel and the Kennel, and Lincoln, and in Lincoln backwards is Kennel, yet the Colonel in a principle proper English numerical composition of the P being visible and pronounced and the P being visible and silent, about the Colonel and the Kennel, and the R like it is between county and country with the word Kennel and Colonel, yet Lincoln backwards, yet Lincoln forwards, and Kennel and Colonel and Lincoln and all that information with like computer programming, and a Colonel is a Colonel, and a canine unit and all that stuff. It's just like, a bunch of crap going on about that, okay? And yet Abraham Lincoln, the only president studying dark, going through, what a circuit that's going through, including the idea of like jurisprudence with the black back and all that information. It's like looking for all that. And Robert E. Rubin was like on television, far beyond like any United States Secretary of Treasury, that I've ever known, like to this very second in my entire lifetime, okay? And it's like automatically, the way it's spelled E. Rubin in one of the 12 tribes of Israel with the E, as one of the 12 tribes of scribe, and, it's almost like corporate law automatically in my mind, and the annuity side that reflects, spiritual principles of like a corporation, yet the 12 tribes of Israel, and really not really ever discussed, maybe other than maybe identifying maybe one or two words, like clergy is like one of them. It's like in Ecclesiastes, it's automatically attaching like religious factors of Christianity to corporate law. Even Bob Eccles in the Houston area is kind of seemed to be having his thing about something about that, involving easements. It seemed to be ultimately his thing that seemed to be introducing some idea of having fair use as an easement of access, but not claiming ownership of the rights. The whole deal about that pavement, even a Sammy Hagar song of like Bob Eccles in the Houston area, and it's like, intellectual property of international law, having fair use of royalties, but not claiming ownership of the rights. And that's exactly what intellectual property is, of like even compact disc, of like bands and entertainment, of DVDs and music videos. And that's the way it is with intellectual property. And that's a big deal about it. And yeah, in any case, so like it's already going on like 53 minutes, but I was wanting to include something about, Bryan Adams and the B, the Bryan going to the Adam side, and the A from Adams going to the Bryan side being A Ryan and pronounced as Aryan, and like even the one Justice Spark thing about one being like 34, like Aryan, and Aryan Skynes of it. The thing with this is that it presents that information of 213 Los Angeles area code. And like, sorry to get late, I'm already wanting to take a break and get this uploaded to youtube.com at WadeASV3DPRDD1. But the thing with this is that it seemed that all that information with Bryan Adams, it seemed to be that with the B on the Adams side, that it becomes like the BS, the alphanumerics are like 21 and U. The thing about, the U is ultimately getting to like, really in my mind, Bono of like the band U2. Yet with the B from Bryan placed with Adams, and the A with Adams going to the Ryan, the A Ryan, and pronounced Aryan. It's like the AOL of Apple and Oracle in my mind, of Apple iPhone SE, and even the Podium presenting the iPod, yet the pod is like a 35, like Austin Powers, yet memory minus the facto is 35, and it's like one of the only ones that really seem to be really the only one that I've been thinking of that has, I mean, the significance of a military barrel determinant of the MindsEye is that memory minus the facto. Seem to be really the only thing equaling 35, and it seemed to be really the only one that, as of now, I mean, not that it's limited to, but it seems to be really the only one that really like matters right now. Not that it's the only one. Memory minus the facto. Yeah. Being 35 like Austin Powers and that wooden buffalo nickel, you know, ultimately getting to Austin Powers, but also being 84 or the wooden buffalo nickel about coffee. It's like, wasn't that cool? Okay. I'm not trying, you know, it's not that I'm agreeing to having any kind of idea of like clearing my throat or coughing or, so like, you know, all this stuff about OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, okay? I even called OSHA about, you know, some of the stuff. Hey, you need to, you know, get OSHA out here and like, you know, get this all cleaned up and, you know, do your thing about, you know, maintaining some idea of a standard and, you know, make sure that it's, you know, the unionized thing about it, you know, the thing with this is that, all that ratifying, codifying law, you know, there's like phrases like on certain, you know, on-site locations that the non-union was like the rat job. It's kind of like, you got to be kidding me. Throwing that crap, I mean, like that, like what the hell's in a house, okay? What did I watch an animated movie, Ratatouille? What's on the table of contents is a menu, is like programming, and you know what the hell's in my home, okay? So you know all that heaven sent, you know, yeah, okay, yeah, sure it is, yeah. Ratifying, codifying law, yeah, sure it is, yeah. In any case, so like anyway, okay. So some like unionized thing about, you know, laws, bylaws, and provisions. Oh my God, I got a provision. Yeah, it's like I'm having a pronoun. Some unionized like OSHA thing, huh? This is not the non-union version, okay? Just because like I know what ratifying and codifying law is to the United States Capitol, okay, or some idea of questionable like human capital is like some canine unit. Or something like Corvette, you know, a mandatory core curriculum of the veterinarian, or, you know, hey man, okay? So like anyway, okay? You know, all that stuff about, you know, some idea of like litigation de facto enriched habeas corpus, and, you know, okay. So like I'm going to attend my home, really, okay? Yeah, I'm thinking about really, maybe getting another one, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you probably already know that, yeah. As a former, yes, a former knowledge of performance monitoring, of course. Any case, yeah. So like anyway, okay. Anyway, I just want to, you know, try and maintain, you know. Anyway, so like I was thinking about the BS with like you know, the B on Brian being like with Adam being coming to a BS and the U thing. And I'll have to actually think about it like I was actually referring to it as like a Bachelor of Science at the same time, the U thing, and ultimately, you know, since the information had led to the idea of supplemental security income, just based upon, you know, that of Brian Adams' name, the A-Run, the O-Run, the America Online, Apple Oracle, the Apple iPhone SE, the Podium, and some idea of the Dream Theater, you think about the video sacrifice signs with the Randall Garcia, and that one particular cargo jet. Yeah, I mean, if you've seen it, it's like, it looks exactly like the Soviet Union. Trump being Alpha American of 88, like Vladimir, okay? It's something that I'm thinking is like, almost like a Chris Tomlin song, which in my mind is like the MindsEye thing about even the Brian Adams video of like, thought I died and gone to heaven. I mean, like, okay, like for real, okay? In any case, so like, that black and blue thing, it presented the principle of like, although it's blue, it's like the midnight blue. And 1995 is the only year that I know of, even knowing it or even finding it, that the President of the United States Air Force One was like, I think the only 1 year. And it might be because of the Jets song that might include, I mean, everything like a calendar year, a fiscal annual. That might even include a joint venture and merger. I'm not sure, but Sarbanes and Oxley, financial instruments of SOX compliance, I'm not sure if that's really the issue about, you know, the midnight blue of like Trump being 88 and Vladimir and like the jet and the I mean, really, the thing about, the World Trade Center 9/11, in my mind is like, completely 1995, but not limited to. And, it's kind of like when I was watching the presidential inaugural ball with Chevy Chase, it's like there's like 4 or 5 different locations of identical identity looking the same. I had a kind of experience of like, you know, William Jefferson Clinton referred to like, genetic cloning. Um, I already really kind of like was kind of like realizing, I'd seen something like that in like a multitude of like wearing the same clothes, the same identity. I mean, on both sides of like 610, the feeder, what was then called the feeder, now it's called the frontage. Um, yeah, even like motorcades, it represents something that would be a vice president network, yet looking all governor about maybe something foreign on Loop 610 several times. Um, it seemed to be Loop 610 where like people were just like coming out like of neighborhoods, having the same transportation, sets of the same neighborhood, same clothes, same appearance. I mean, like everywhere, it's like unreal. Um, and there'd been a time at several locations um, that the same identical identity and structure, yet different colored skin, different nationality, all looking the same except different colored skin. It's kind of like really, kind of like going, wow, really, kind of flipping a little bit about that, yeah. Um, and William Jefferson Clinton had mentioned something about cloning. It seemed to be the only book going through a certain specific part about the circuit that it seemed to be the only one and only place. I'd look for information about human genetic cloning. Um, you've heard the phrase sperm bank and all that, but in any case, I was like actually looking for the information about, that, and I looked for it and I wasn't really finding it. But when I was going through the circuit, it seemed to be like the one and only book that had like, the real information about that. Um, in Huntsville, yeah. Um, about human genetic cloning, and wasn't really referred to as the sperm bank. Um, but anyway, yeah. So like, maybe that's the idea of a pagan idolatry, and maybe just what I have to say about it, right? Ultimately, is there a difference between the funny bone and the humorous bone, or who you kidding, okay? So like now it's kind of like you get to the anatomy. It's kind of like hey, I think that maybe since that seemingly that no one has ever said anything to me like in my whole entire life that maybe it's a phenomenally huge secret like everyone on the planet knows, right? That maybe I'll have eyeballs exceeding above my own beltway, and maybe have all that like the way it really should be anyway, right? Not that a Vice President Network has ever taken the time to maybe suggest maybe anything other than it's really not funny to me, and like I think you already know that, okay? There's some idea of international banking systems using Paraland for alphanumerics and linguistics of Los Angeles and quite a bit about it. And all that one word about relation, it really is the one word. Not that it has to be anything other than the degree, the academic degree of definition of intended use. Not that it has to be linguistic alphanumerics, but it seems to be so much about linguistic alphanumerics that really seems to be so very much about pronunciation, not limited to not like one definition of degreed intent. Really, a lot is like pronunciation in a way it's like unlike any other perception of like years of knowing and studying where it's used and how it's used, and sometimes integrating factors of just like experience, really. And it's a lot about pronunciation sometimes. The idea of a pronoun as compared to third person to third party, or even the thought of the idea of like two tone as like pewter using metallic paint. It's kind of like Ulysses S. Grant as graphite. It's like a political debate. What he's saying, graphite is really a political debate at a presidential level, representing a vice president network as a pronoun. And like I'm right here, it's like proper English numerical composition, and only the reference between graffiti and confetti of a birth certificate is the only idea of absentee voting, or mechanics liens, or carbon footprints. You kidding me? As intellectual easement, and maybe as third person, third party, and like wow, man, like as a working man. And not maybe neglect people, the experience of the requirements of the high society. and actually, put the real, incentive like pronoun into it, and not maybe disregard it as they themselves, and had it been they themselves, had it been a pronoun a little sooner, had it been they themselves, and had I been a pronoun a little bit sooner, and maybe not so intellectually like naive to like prepaid postage, okay, some pagan idolatry, or maybe some black code of constitutional law and state statutes annotated is really what I'm saying, or a black dot on the map, or some like 10 commandment issue of a 10-star general. Okay, so like anyway, so like I'm really any case, so like I'm thinking about Brian Adams really, because it's really about A Ryan and O Ryan, and something about America Online, and the BS being like the alphabet of 21, the exact opposite of 12. Okay, I had the information. I just like really kind of I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I was really kind of getting serious about going over what I thought about it, and reading it over again. But anyway, it's already gone on more than an hour. I'm already ready to take a break, and yay, all right, yeah. Well, good, great, there it is. Okay.